Well, today we begin part 2 of the four corners of the mind as we try to understand how God's designed us with great complexity and what that means. And let me begin by saying our God is a searching, seeking God. Our God is a searching, seeking God. And maybe I'll look at some passages in Ezekiel 34, Luke 19, and Matthew 18 to support that. God seeks us, by the way, before we seek Him. He has initiated with us in creation and with communication. He takes the initiative with us, and I think Jesus is the all-time search and seeker after man. I mean, that's what He's about. Ezekiel 34 says, I myself, I God, will search for my sheep and look and seek after them. I'm going after them. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays and the scattered. I will bind up and bandage the injured and the broken and strengthen the weak and the sick. But the sleek and the strong I will destroy. In Luke 19:10, when it talks about Jesus, He says very clearly, the Son of Man has come to search, to seek, to save that which was lost. And Jesus tells a story that you might be familiar with, recorded for us in Matthew 18. He says, what do you think? If a man has 100 sheep, and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go and search for the one that's straying? We have a searching, seeking, connecting God. That's what He's about. He continues to initiate with us. He's initiated us with us His revelation. He's let us see general revelation, which you can see in a sunset and a deer and just a beautiful flower. You can see God's creation, which speaks to us, but He's specially spoken to us in His Word because He wants a relationship with us. He's a seeker. Well, we talked about last week that we were created in His image, so humans also have a searching, seeking, connecting dynamic, much like our phones, right? So when your phone is off, but you land on a plane, and then you turn your phone back on, it immediately says at the top, searching. Searching, 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 and it's spinning and searching because it's looking for a connection. Because the phone can't do much without the connection. But once the connection occurs, you have all access to all these outside resources to bless you. Same with your own human kind. Like God, who's a searching, seeking, connecting being, you have a searching, seeking, connecting chip in you, a homing device, if you will, that a little relational radar that's boop, 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 always searching, always searching, always searching to connect. You were made that way. In fact, when you were in the womb, you started searching. And as soon as you come out of the womb, you have what I'm told is called a rooting instinct, which is the instinct a baby has to want to find the nipple, to find the mother, to find an attachment, to connect. It's you don't have to tell it, do you guys want to connect? You little baby, you want to connect? It's looking for attachment. It's built in for attachment. We have a bonding beacon, a sonar, if you will, in our soul, an internal tracking system that always desires to connect. And Genesis 2:18 says, it is not good for man to be alone. He is therefore created with a searching, seeking, connecting dynamic with God, but also not just with God, with other people as well. We saw in John 15:5, Jesus said, I'm the vine and you're the branches. If you remain in me, if you stay connected to me, if you abide in me, if you're attached, if you're bonded to me, and I in you, you'll bear a lot of good fruit. But apart from me, if you get disconnected, if we're not actually attached, you can do nothing. You can do nothing of organic, real value. The fruits of love and joy and peace and patience won't be yours. The branch, when it's attached to the vine, automatically gets all the organic outcomes of that, and it will bear good fruit. But if I take the branch off, it can pray all at once, it can go to church every week, it will not bear organically good fruit. It'll just be a try-harder branch. It'll be a do-good branch, but it won't be organically transformed. And the mind won't be connected to the mind of God to be transformed, to live a healthy, full life. We're told by Jesus that we're made for relationship, and Paul the Apostle and others pick that up in the epistles like 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul says, the hand can't say to the foot, right, I don't need you. The arm can't say to the leg, I don't need you. Why? Because we need each other. We're built in with a searching, seeking, connecting need for resources from outside ourselves in order to thrive and to do well. We looked at over 100 one another passages that talk about that dynamic. We are to encourage one another, comfort one another, accept one another, seek good, give preference to one another, serve one another, love one another, on and on and on. And there's relational things we're not to do. We're not to lie to one another or envy one another or complain or grumble about each other. We're not to judge each other. We're not to bite, devour, or consume one another. I'm so glad that's written out. Don't bite. We're created for God, and we're created for each other. And in those connections, we're to have a real relationship with God and a real relationship with one another. And sometimes we talked about you could be with someone and say, where are you? They're physically with you, but it's like, where are you? And so we've been talking about, well, what is that? So I gave you kind of a geography of relationships, a map, if you will, of the mind for different kinds of connections I'm proposing we can have. And this series is a little bit biblical and relational, but it's a little bit psychological and anthropological too. We're looking at kind of how man works in the soul according to Scripture, and this is a little bit of me postulating, just trying to understand it. And I've suggested to you that it's possible for man to have a real relationship with God and people, but he could also have a pseudo relationship with God, people, and other things, or a bad relationship, or sometimes he can detach and have no relationship at all. We're designed for true, authentic, grace and truth kinds of relationships. In fact, I made a handout because I know some of you like stuff. So, Paul, do you want to be my handout helper? If you want a little half sheet, I have made a little picture, and we'll put this on the screen. We have a little white version for you. And so if you are like a person that's like, and I have a few big ones too, sweetie, if you see someone that you think they deserve a big handout, I have a few of those, but they have to be really special. Oh, you're buttering up your friends and stuff. Wow. So this is just my attempt to try to help us understand a construct, if you will, like how it works. So hopefully this is helpful for you. In that first corner is the real or true or authentic grace and truth, give and take, real relationship. In the pseudo, I've talked about what is the seductively and deceptively false good connections. Those tend to be usually narcissistic projections, not that we need to get into that, but basically category number 2 is typically a form of idolatry, a way to create a need to massage yourself. It's instead of going to God and people to deal with your anxiety, you go to food. and you use a pseudo. Food isn't designed to really take your anxiety away, but it feels like it. So does alcohol and drugs and a lot of other things. Momentarily, it feels like, well, it's gone. But then you wake up in the morning and you're a little fatter because you've been eating and a little hungover and a little, you've lost a few brain cells along the way, and you have your anxiety in the morning again. So it's a pseudo relationship in your head that you think will solve it, but it's deceptively false. Then if you have enough alcohol, that can actually become just a bad relationship. You go to it and it's just not good for you, but it is a relationship. And we talked about Betty, and she was with a guy named Bob, but not this Bob. Another Bob who had a bat, and Bob would beat Betty with the bat. And Betty would leave and go to corner number 4, which is no relationship. She moved out. She doesn't want to hang with bad Bob. Not this bad Bob. This is the good Bob, but the bad Bob. But you can't live in corner number 4. You're not designed to be alone. That's like the hell corner. That's the detached corner. And you can do it for a short time, but not very long. So Betty moved back with Bob, and then Bob killed her. And then we read in the headlines that Betty was murdered by Bob, and we ask ourselves, why would Betty go back to a bad relationship? She'd go back because why? A bad relationship is better than no relationship. Okay? We wish Betty would have gone to corner number 2 and just bought a lot of new shoes for herself that made her feel good. That wouldn't be the solution, but a pseudo relationship's better than a bad one. But ideally, we wish she picked up the phone and called us and said, I'm having a hard time. I need love. I need someone to help me get through. And she'd have a real relationship with God, with herself, and with people that truly loved her. So I've said there's, in a sense, 4 different ways we can connect. And corner number 2 has a lot of pseudo relationships. Corner number 3 is a lot of bad. This is kind of like the James Dean corner. This is like Johnny Depp. This is like, well, Satan's probably in this corner too. This is, for us, perhaps idealized rebellion. If you like someone who kind of breaks the rules a lot, is a bad guy, it's like, you could... He's a destroyer, but you could have that in your head. You can hang out with people that are destructive, but they're so fun at a party, but they do a lot of damage. But you could also have a critical conscience yourself. So your own mind could be hard on yourself, and you could have a really brutal, critical conscience, which would be corner number 3. And then corner number 4 is terrorizing. It's existential dread. You can't really live there that long. And when you are there, you will externalize your anxiety. Like a child would start to tell you that there's a boogeyman under their bed. That's because they feel alone at night, and it's terrorizing, and so they create an external in their head, something that's under the bed in their mind. Basically, it's just hard to live in that isolated state. We're designed for connection. And maybe I'll just say before we jump into Genesis 3, you can take anything and put it in any of those 4 corners. John, you're a golfer, right? So in corner number 1, it would just be a great golf, it's just a hobby. Like, I feel like golfing, I love golf, let's go have a real relationship with golf. But John could also have he wouldn't have a conflict in his marriage ever. I can't even imagine that. But if for some reason he did, he could decide, forget this, I'm going golfing. Now he's going to corner number 2, and golf is not just a hobby today. Now it's a way to avoid dealing with a relational tension that he might have. So it's a pseudo attachment. He could also use golf in corner number 3 because maybe he wants to go out there and express a lot of rage or anger, and he's throwing his clubs and he's projecting on other people as well, which is, look at these people, they don't golf quick enough, and it's just bad. The whole golf experience is bad, but he's getting it out, and it's because the weather's bad and the course is bad, and they don't even clean these sand traps anymore, and so all this externalized badness. And he could also go to corner number 4. He could be out there going, I'm golfing. It's a nice day. Should be having a good time. But I feel alone. I feel alone. Like a lot of my golfing, I feel alone because I hit where people don't go. I'm like, my ball's way over there. They're all over there. I do feel kind of alone. So in my own head, I could feel like this is a kind of a lonely experience for me instead of like, this is really fun golfing. So you could use a good thing in 4 different ways. By the way, you could do that with church. I'll use church as an example. You can come today to try to connect with God, connect with His people, and connect with His Word. Corner number 1. You could come today because it makes you feel good, like you're a righteous person, and you're checking off a box. So you're coming for corner number 2. You're not really here to connect with God or His Word, or you don't really even want to connect with His people. But it does have a mood-altering positive experience for you in the sense that for a short time, I went to church. And that feels good if you're a list keeper or an achiever and you want to check a box. It could be corner number 3, which is, you grew up with a Catholic mother who kept telling you should go to church and you really should feel bad if you don't go. So you go and you come and you feel guilty and you feel bad, but you came. So it's a bad experience for you, but you did go to church. And then you could also come to church and just be sitting where you're sitting and be utterly alone. And you could say things like, this is like the house of God. There's people here. It's supposed to be like loving, but in my head, I'm all alone. No one knows what I'm going through. I'm not going to share with anyone. And it's a terrible existential, sad, disheartening experience for you. And then you could leave and go, that was not helpful, because you went to kind of the no connection corner in your head. Is that, did you track with that? So the reality is we're complex beings. You can come in trying to connect with God, but then while you're sitting here, you start to think about your grocery list at Walmart, so you're in a pseudo land, and then you feel bad that you were thinking of your grocery list, and you can't even focus on God, so you kind of beat yourself up, corner number 3. You pull away, you come back, and you say, I'm going back to corner number 1. I'm supposed to be here for the Lord. And your mind can just go all over the place. Okay, let's go to Genesis 3. In this passage, I thought I'd read you just the first 7 verses of Genesis 3. This is where mankind falls. This is where mankind sins for the first time. And what I'm asking myself, I'm going to be a theologian. That's right, what I am as a pastor. So I'm going to teach you the passage, but I'm also going to integrate the anthropological, kind of psychological question, which I'm asking of the passage, which is, why did that happen? But the scriptures don't tell us that. So here's what the passage says. This is about the deception, then disobedience, and death of mankind. And I'm asking the existential question of what happened in the mind when this happened. Can we go there? Can we do both of those? Because I can teach the passage, but there's something in the passage I have a question about. So verse 1. Now the serpent was more crafty, more cunning and clever, more subtle and skilled, more intelligent in deceit than all the other animals that the Lord God had made. And he, Satan the serpent, said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? Well, the woman said to the serpent, well, we may eat from the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that's in the middle of the garden. And she adds something that God didn't say, you must not touch it. Interesting addition there. Or you will die, which God did say. If you eat from it, you will die. You will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman. In other words, God's a liar. You can't trust that. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's withholding from you. That's not true. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened. You're going to have greater awareness, meaning greater autonomy. He knows you'd have greater independence. You wouldn't need him or others. And you'll be like God, who is accountable to no one, knowing good and evil. Well, when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food, which is true, which God said it's good for food, Genesis 1, and when she saw that it was pleasing to the eye, which it's true, and God said it would be pleasing to the eye, and when she saw that it was also desirable for gaining wisdom, which is not true, which God did not say, she took some of it and ate it. Thank you so much. You want to just unplug that little guy, or is he's just a little noisy guy today. She took some of it and ate it, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked, and so they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. So there you have the scripture. Here's my question. She knows it's good for food. She knows it's pleasing to the eye. What happened in her mind, in her projected fantasies, that she would also think to herself, it looks actually desirable for gaining wisdom, which God says, I don't want you to know the knowledge between good and evil. I want to decide that. What happened in her mind? See, she would have to have a rebellious willingness in her mind to reject a real relationship with God, a trusting, honest relationship with God, where she was faithful to what God said, and she would have to be pridefully independent to decide in her mind, wait a minute, I don't want a real relationship with God. I like the comfort of me deciding. She would have to go to corner number 2 and corner number 3, a little rebellion, like, why do I need God anyways? And then she would have to fool herself into deceiving that she doesn't really need God. And she would then have to justify her perversion, fantasizing that her decisions are actually better than God's decisions. In other words, the text doesn't fill all that in for me. It just says she believed a truth, and came up with a lie. What I'm asking you is, what would have had to happen in her mind to be able to execute on eating something that God said the moment you eat from it, you will die? She would have to have believed Satan. She would have to believe she wouldn't die. She'd have to believe she's smarter than God. She'd have to relish the idea of having a pseudo-attachment instead of a real one. Because in the real relationships in the universe, you need people outside yourself. You need God. You're dependent on that for wisdom, life, and living. But she didn't want that. So she's like, actually, I think this would make me wise. I would become the decider. I get to decide what's good and bad. I'm autonomous and independent. Though the text doesn't unflesh all that for us, it's clearly there. If we don't connect with real relationships, we are searching. We will connect with things that are not good for us. Let me suggest 3 of them for you. Worldly things, one's life, and one's own selfish interests. Matthew 6, Jesus says, you don't need to anxiously worry. You don't have to be people of little faith, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we think, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear for clothing? You don't have to obsess or get all consumed about that. For the pagans, the godless Gentiles, the outsiders who don't know God, They search for that. They eagerly go after that. They're always seeking that. They're always concerned and worried about what they're going to eat and drink and wear. But your Heavenly Father, the loving, providing, connecting Abba Papa that you have, already knows you need them. Non-Christians don't realize that there's a loving Father who's planning to make all those things available for His children. They don't know that because they're not connected. Why would you, in your mind, act like you're not connected to God? Why would you move from corner 1 to corner 2 where you're now obsessing on food and drink and what to wear? You would have had to detach somewhat from a real relationship with your Father, Jesus is saying, who knows you need that. You don't even have to worry about that. But we don't trust Him. We don't believe it. We don't really think, well, are you sure you got me on that? Like, okay, as a backup, I'm going to get preoccupied with those things in case you don't show up. And so Jesus says we live like pagans. In Luke 17:33, Jesus teaches, whoever seeks or searches or clings or grasps to keep their own life, they're going to lose it. But whoever loses their life, whoever lets go of the pseudo-bad, no-connection space and stays in a real connection with God, will actually preserve it. If you stay in corner 1, you'll actually live and thrive. If you trust God. But you'd have to let go of the worldly, independent, I'm in charge, have to pull it off mindset, and you'd have to go to the dependent, trusting God and others mindset to do that. Philippians 2:21. Most people search and seek after their own interest, not those of Christ Jesus. People are searching, and they're searching to meet their own needs and not trust God. Most people, Paul tells the Philippians. So we are searching, seeking creatures. In Genesis, we saw that the mind came up with cuckoo things. There I gave you 3 bad examples, but now I'd like to give you some positive examples, which is we are actually designed to search and seek and connect with God and the things of God. And there's oodles of verses. I put a bunch of them up there, but I'll just read through some of them because I want to support the searching, seeking dynamic that we're talking about that goes on in the mind and show you some actual text because, we're Bible-believing people, so you want to make sure it comes from the text, not just from a psychological construct. So the text is clear. We are to seek God. 1 Chronicles 16, we're to seek His face. 2 Chronicles 7, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face. Seek it. Search for it. I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin. I will heal their land. We see this in Chronicles. We see it in Micah. Psalm 105. Look to the Lord and His strength. Seek and search for His face. Like, seek a real relationship. Stay attached. And see, if you seek God, nothing else will really matter. That's what Matthew 6 is about. Jesus said, right? But seek first, search first for the kingdom and His righteousness. And then all the things you really need, you don't have to go to corner number 2. He'll do it for you in corner number 1. In Matthew 13, Jesus tells a parable. It says, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching, and seeking, and looking for a fine pearl. And when he finds one of great value, he goes away and sells everything he has and he buys the pearl. When you get the one pearl of great value, you give up everything else and go for it. When you have Jesus in corner number one, you don't need to worry about other attachments, because he already knows you need food and protection and clothing and friends, and you don't have to compensate for that. If you seek God and search for him, Scripture is very clear, you'll find him. We see that in Deuteronomy 4, Proverbs 8, Luke 11. If you seek the Lord your God, you will find him when you seek him. God says in Proverbs 8, I love those who love me, and those who seek me will find me. Luke 11, I say to you, ask, it'll be given to you. Jesus said, seek, you will find. Knock, the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks, receives. And for everyone who seeks and searches, I need a connection with God. I need a connection with God. I need a connection with God. Will get it. It's not a trick. You turn your phone on in a Wi-Fi zone, it will connect. And God's like, I'm like that 24/7. We're to seek a connection with God regardless of our life situation. 2 Chronicles 30, I think, makes that clear. We're to seek God because he's looking for us. Psalm 14:2, the Lord looks down from heaven on all mankind to see if there's any who understand and who seek and search for him. He's looking for those who search for him. Come near to God, James 4:8. Seek God and he'll come near to you. We're to search and seek for him with all of our being. 1 Chronicles 22, now devote your heart and soul to searching and seeking the Lord your God. Jeremiah 29:13, you know this verse, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. And then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you, and you will seek and search me and find me, and you will seek and search me with all your heart. I'm planning good things for you. You don't have to fill that in with crazy other stuff. I've got a really good plan for you. You, God, are my God, Psalm 63, and I earnestly seek and search for you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. You're the one I want to connect with. Isaiah 55, Psalm 78, Acts 17, Psalm 9:10. For you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek and search for you. Never. Always connect. Romans 3. There is no one righteous, not even one. There's no one who understands. There's no one who truly seeks God. He's like, confess that. Lord, I go astray. I do go to corner number 2 and 3 and 4 a lot of times. But change my heart so I can stay in corner number 1. Hebrews 11:6. Without faith it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly what? Seek and search for him. He rewards people who seek and search for him. Lamentations 3:25. The Lord is good to those who hope in him, to the one who actually seeks and searches for him. Psalm 34:10. The lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek and search the Lord, they're not going to lack a good thing. You don't have to go to corner number 2. Well, I had a hard day. I'm going to go drink, eat, do something to comfort me in corner number 2. It's a pseudo relationship. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with food just to be food, and a nice drink to be a nice drink. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can do that in corner number 1 with God and good people. So food is just food, and you actually get connected by God, and you celebrate with God, and you celebrate with people, and you have a good time, and you can get in your car, and your car is just your car. It just takes you where you need to go. You don't have to like go out and wash it and idolatize it, make it something it's not, it's just a car, and you can go to a nice place because you worked really hard, and it's just fun to go to the beach and get away. But it's not like you're escaping God and others. You're not detaching. You're not like, I got to go like isolate. You can actually go, and doesn't mean you have to have people with you. You can just have a nice, thoughtful, reflective, real relationship with God, nature, and yourself. Seek Him. Psalm 119, 2 and 10, blessed are those who keep His statutes and seek and search Him with all their heart. I seek you with my heart. Do not let me stray from your commands, because we do. 1 Kings 22, first seek and search for the counsel of the Lord. There's enough verses there, right? I think you get the point, right? Did I prove it? Did I did I show it? We have a God who searches and seeks us. Jesus came to seek and save us, and we have a chip in us designed to search and seek God, and He promises that He'll deliver if you search Him. He can be found. If you search, you're going to find. He's available. He wants that. He can meet our deepest needs. So we ought to search Him through His Spirit, through His people, through His Word. Now, let me make a comment about those four corners again, because some might be asking, well, being in corner number one is not that easy. It's not that easy just to have real relationships with people, and I just want to acknowledge that's true. It is hard. And that's why it's easy for your mind to say, why would I try to connect with this person? I kind of think I know what they're already going to say, and we're kind of not doing great, and kind of feel lonely when I'm with them because they don't quite get me. That In-N-Out burger is really going to meet my need right now. That's what corner number 2 feels so reliable. But after the hamburger's done and the fries and the Neapolitan shake, which is so awesome, right? Because they mix the strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate, I still am where I was before. But if you risk in corner number 1, you could get rejected there. There is a real fear, intimacy dynamic in corner number 1. I just want to acknowledge connecting with God can be complex, and with people can be hard, but that's the corner I'm encouraging you to muster your courage, learn to suffer a long time with the good character that you're developing, so that you stay real with God and you stay real with people, which means you're really going to connect, and it's going to be really awesome, but sometimes it'll be really painful because you'll get really misunderstood, but then you'll talk through that, and you just hang in there with real relationships, and then you can have just real food and take real vacations and do real other things and have a real golf game, but you don't have to like split your mind and go all over the place, because real life is challenging and hard. So in other words, I want to make sure you just know that corner number 1 isn't like, come over to real relationships, it's just a fun fest over here. No, it's real. It's real. Reality is, it's real. That's why I find myself going to corner number 2. Some of you know I coach a few CEOs in business as a kind of a mentor for them. And when they have complex problems in their company, it's going to be tempting for them to go to the people that tell them the good things they want to hear and just keep going to corner number 2 with people that flatter them that they're such an amazing leader. It's very difficult to hang with the people on their staff teams that are critical or have difficult feedback. But it's like, that's the real stuff. Go to corner number 2. if you want. But corner number one, you can hear it, you can work through it, and you can talk through it. I was reading a leadership survey. It kind of horrified me. I think I'll just share it with you quickly. It's from the Global Leadership Summit. This is a summit of pastors, by the way. So these are leaders worldwide. And they asked 3 questions. One was, do you have some place where you can be 100% honest and vulnerable as to what you're going through in your leadership role, where you can totally be honest with struggles, conflicts, needs, or weaknesses? 80% said, no. No place like that. I have no place I could be 100% honest. Real. 80% are like, I do not hang out in corner number one at all, professionally. Question 2, do you have anyone or any group of people who's just totally committed to your growth, your well-being as a leader, the very role that relationship is just to develop and help you? 80% said, no, I have no one. No one who mentors, encourages, coaches, builds in. Don't have that at all. And the final question was, have you experienced anything in the last year that you would say has gotten to, quote, clinical proportions, like burnout, loss of energy, difficulty getting motivated, concentration or focus problems, anxiety or stress, depression, an addiction, or other habit like sleep problems, etc.? 80% said, yes, we do have that. Okay, that's a problem. That's a big problem. With a lot of big problems coming down the road. I suspect that's not just a church leadership. I think that's probably a corporate leadership. That could be a church survey. How many in a fellowship of faith would say they have someone they could be like 100% honest with? Well, let's look around. What are your options here? It's like, I don't think I'm going to share completely what's going on with anyone in this room because I don't want you to out me. I don't want you to shame me. I don't want you to judge me. Unless you and I are starting to build something that's a little different than you get out there. Which is, why don't we just, what do we have to lose? Let's try it. Now, be discerning. There's a couple knuckleheads. I'm not going to look at anyone in the room. Just a couple. But there might be some people in here that are real enough, gracious enough, loving enough that you could share almost anything with confidentiality that they wouldn't share with other people, to give you the freedom to actually say, I really am struggling. And I need someone, I need it in the light. I want to confess it. I want it to be in a place where I'm not going to get judged or put down. If you have that, you'll get better. It'll be worse at the beginning. It'll be worse because it's yucky and hard and shameful and weird to talk about, but it'll get better. Time will work for you. And you won't have to go to corner number 2 or 3 as often, hopefully a little less, to anesthetize or medicate what you're going through. You can actually keep it in a real relationship. And by the way, you can do that with God. So you do it with God and a couple people. And if you do that, then the 80% who said yes to the burnout, the depression, the addiction could actually realize, I'm not actually drinking as much. I'm not going to my other sources. I'm not leaving corner number 1 as often. I actually have mental well-being, not because life is easy. It's complicated and hard, but I'm actually doing okay. So in closing, as though we've tried to cover a lot of ground, and I'm not sure I did a great job with it, what I wanted you to know is you have a searching, seeking, connecting God who made you a searching, seeking, connecting person, always searching for a connection, and you are going to find a connection. Always. I'm hoping it's a real one. I'm hoping it's a loving, gracious, give and receive kind of connection, because if you don't find that, you will find another connection. It might be a pseudo connection. It might be a bad connection. You might start living up in your head, which can be a scary place. Some of you have a small Nazi rally going on up there, but no names, just I've heard. Or you could just start feeling very alone and isolated, and I don't want that for you. And I don't want it for me. And I'm at risk like you are. I'm tempted to perform and look like I have it together and like that I don't struggle and I don't have needs, but I really do. So don't believe my lies, and I won't believe yours. And I don't know exactly what happened to Eve in the garden, but I know somewhere between a truth, she created a lie in her mind that she didn't need God, and she could do it on her own. And maybe making her own decisions was kind of cool. And it destroyed her, and Adam, and the rest of us. So use that God chip, that bonding beacon, that tracking system to do your best to connect with real people and seek God. He can be found. And I think your mind will do a little better. Amen? Okay.